Alright, the Bucks, it is Talking Buccaneers with me, Fumane Mthethwa, with an inspiring video about an inspiring bit of news on an inspiring Sunday. Your club, my club, our club, the mighty Buccaneers, have revived their interest in the mighty man, Sibongiseni Mthethwa, over at Stellenbosch FC. And yeah, in this video, what I want to do is not so much about the verifying the news, validating them, as much as I just want to speak about whether or not he would fit at the club, he would fit in our current squad, in our current team that's doing so well in all competitions, all things considered. So I read, from reputable sources, big media companies, Kickoff, Soccer Laduma. This video is not brought to you by them, although hopefully if they're watching, this podcast is looking for a sponsor, so yeah, please hit me up if you're interested in that. But yeah, I read from those big media publications, you guys will have seen it's been doing the rounds on social media, that Pirates was once interested in the player. So he's been doing phenomenal, from last season, signed from Black Leopards and by Stellenbosch. He joined them last season, and since being over there, he's just done fantastically. One of those players that I guess are late bloomers in the top flight of South African football. Most of us, I speak for myself, only came to know about him very recently. And by recently, I mean the last few years. He's not someone that I've known from, his early 20s and stuff like that. So he's one of those that we only recently know about. I think I speak for most people by saying that. If I'm not speaking for you, congratulations. You can maybe put that in the comments that you've known this player from X year, 2000 and whatever. But yeah, he's been doing phenomenally well. Much recently, start of the season, he's been fantastic, especially even against us. And yeah, there's talk of, Orlando Pirates have once again inquired about him at Stellenbosch. It seems like at the start of the window, Pirates did inquire, but I suppose, when Pirates want a player, I think Pirates get a player. Maybe it was a case of Pirates not being so desperate for him. And I speak loosely with these words, but much recently, there's been again an interest. Apparently, we've inquired about the player at Stellenbosch FC, and it seems like they are quite determined to keep him. I read some of the things he had to say, and again, I think I read this from Kickoff, if I'm not mistaken. It's or Soccer Laduma, one of the two. It was an article earlier in the transfer window around July, if I'm not mistaken, and he was speaking about nothing formal has been communicated to him. So no one has said anything. Either the club, neither the club nor his representatives, his agent, has said anything about a potential move to one of the big clubs, including what it seems like are the clubs that are interested in him, Kaizer Chiefs, AmaZulu at some point, especially at the start of the transfer window, and much recently, Orlando Pirates. And yeah, I guess what I want to do in this video, like I already mentioned, and let me get into it now, is whether or not he would be a good fit at Orlando Pirates. Now, I did a video about Thabang Monare's expiring contract, and in that video I spoke about and I looked at the midfield options that we have and their age and just the plan of the Pirates midfield, going forward. So you can check that video out. I'll link it in the description, maybe even up here. Please watch that video after you watch this one. It was an interesting video for me to do, just, thinking about what it seems like the coach is thinking about, just looking at the numbers and just, logically thinking about these things and dissecting them as the fans. And yeah, interesting things that people said also in the comments about Monare and the whole midfield situations with the players that are currently at the club and their age, especially. A lot of players in our midfield in their 30s. The majority of them, so more than half of who we have in our midfield currently, except Ndlondlo, who's 28 obviously, and Sepelo Baloni, who I think is 24 at the moment. We've got Makaula, who's 34. We've got Thabang Monare, who's also in his 34th year. We've got, I beg your pardon, Miguel Tim, who's 31, and we've got Ben Mutwari, who I think is 32 this year. And, you know, of those midfielders, it doesn't seem like Munari is stopping. It doesn't seem like Tim is stopping. But I do suppose that you've got to take into account when you build a squad and you're building for the future. Yeah, just, you know, the age of the group. I think the Pirates recruitment team will be looking at that as something that definitely, if not a red flag, is an orange flag at the moment, that they need to get that average age of the central midfield a bit down. I think currently it should go around 30 something, if not around 29. Maybe someone has done it already, and you can put that in the comments to tell us what's the average age of the central midfield position at Pirates. And I'm not counting people that play in the number 10 position like Fortune Makaringe and Kabelo Dlamini and Patrick Maswanganyi, who play more as 10s. I am looking specifically at what would be the competition of Mthethwa if he comes to Orlando Pirates, or when he comes to Orlando Pirates, just who he'd be coming up against as people that threaten his place in the starting 11. And that's the people I've mentioned, and Goodman Musele, who's out on loan at Chippa United at the moment. Now, you know, I spoke at great length about Sibongiseni Mthethwa in a video that I did much recently. It was the first leg of the MTN8 semi-final, where we were playing against Stellenbosch. And I said in my preview, well, you can check that video out. I'll definitely have it linked as well. And I'll also link it up here. Again, please watch it after you watch this video. And what I said was I was waxing lyrical, and I was raving about the player, that he's not just the 6 that you would think of. And a lot of people have characterized him as a destroyer, which he is. By all accounts, he's someone who destroys and reads the game very well, and he protects his back line, and yeah, he's good at interceptions and protects, you know, the center backs very much. That's what he does for Stellenbosch. He just sits and he will release people like Adams and Palace and the people that play in the midfield for Stellenbosch FC. What he would do coming to Orlando Pirates is that he'd be the person that would definitely sit in front of the midfield. Now, we play in a 4-2-3-1, so a bit of a different system to what Stellenbosch plays, and what he's currently doing for them is that he's somewhat a lone 6 who then frees up their box-to-box midfields, and Adams and whoever will be playing on right central midfield for them. At Pirates, he'd have to play alongside someone. However, I think this signing would be a great signing in that it would give us a bit of an option of playing with a different system. So we obviously play with the 4-2-3-1 with an inverted V that is facing our back line. Whereas if you sign someone like Sibongiseni Mthethwa, with what he does is, you know, you can afford to have him be the lone one in that number 6, and then you can invert the V to where we've got 2 number 8s instead of, you know, 2 number 6s and 1 10. Then you'd have 2 number 8s, or maybe you think of it as a 6 and 8 on the left central midfield, would be more box to box, and then a 10 up front, someone who'd have that free role like Patrick Maswanganyi, who wouldn't have, you know, the burden of having to come very deep in his defending. He just do his defending, you know, as that first line of pressure, which we know he is currently alongside Zakele Lepasa. Now, that's, I think, you know, one of the things that I'm excited for with this kind of transfer, and I'll get to my concerns of it, is I think obviously looking at the age of Munari and Tim, and I'm the first one to say that they don't look at all 30-something, Tim and Munari, and credit to them. It's just their fitness. It's really just attributable to what they've done in their careers, obviously, to be able to get so far down their you know, their career in their 30s, and they're still playing like 20-something-year-olds, and they're still competing with these 20-something-year-olds who have no chance against them. I mean, we've loaned out people like Musele to go and get some experience out there because of how key Tim, Munari, Makaula still are to Orlando Pirates. I think what it would do, what excites me about this signing most, is that you'd have Ndlondlo mostly. I think he would play with, just because of how it would be hard to play Sibongiseni Mthethwa as that kind of player alongside someone like Munari. Now, I think people sometimes mischaracterize Munari as someone who's not creative, who's not, who's just a defensive midfielder or something like that. I think he's more of a versatile player in that midfield. He can do, you know, the six, kind of sit in and dictate, help us keep possession, help us retain the ball. I think he can do that. I think last season I've seen him do the box-to-box, especially when he's playing alongside Tim, as opposed to when he's playing with Ndlondlo. When he's playing with Tim, I think he's got a bit of a role to join in and be the extra man in attack, that late run, late arrivals into the box or just outside the box. But when he's playing with Ndlondlo, he's more of the sitter. And then you've got Ndlondlo, who will be a deep-lying playmaker. Did a video on Ndlondlo. If you haven't seen that, interesting video for me to do where I spoke about how key he is for us and what he does for us. Ndlondlo will obviously be the deep one in build-up because of his attributes, and he will then also be the one that joins that attack while Munari sits and he protects and he gives us that number for transitions of the opposition. Now, I think with Mthethwa, what would happen obviously is he'd have to play with someone like Ndlondlo because of how you'd need someone to be lest the midfield becomes very workman-like and it becomes a very defensive-minded midfield. I think, I already mentioned that Munari is a creative player, but that's not his specialty. Tim can be attacking, but that's not his specialty. I don't think Tim is an 8 currently. He's more suited to being a 6 who'll stay there and, join in, but not as much as you'd have someone like Ndlondlo joining in and becoming creative in those pockets up front, further up the field. So he'd have to play Mthethwa alongside someone like Ndlondlo, whom he'd free up some more to go up front and not worry about, not worry so much about coming back and giving us the numbers. Because I said in my previous reaction about the Stellenbosch and Orlando Pirates match that Mthethwa is just one of those players that seem like you've got 2 or 3 people in midfield and you've really got 2. Sometimes if he's there alone, it seems like you've got 2 people playing there and really he's just alone. He's that kind of player. He sits there, he's got legs for 2 people. He runs the minutes that 2 people would run in a single match. He chases down people. He tackles, like I mentioned. He intercepts. He protects the back line and things like that. So he'd definitely be freeing for our midfielder to be able to be more adventurous with Ndlondlo, who would have to, think about mostly attack because of just how good Mthethwa is. He specializes in that role, and I think there are very people in this league playing in that position who do that sort of thing. He reminds me a lot of someone like Tinashe Nengomashe at Kaizer Chiefs. I think they had a fantastic defensive midfielder with him because he was just that destroyer. But then that's not all that he does, and this is the thing about Mthethwa is he's also quite good at Stellenbosch in the matches that I've watched them, and I've watched quite a bit of them, including watching about our match against them maybe 5 times, our recent match against them. Is he's also very good on the ball. You want someone who's going to be able to start those attacks for us deep in the. So when we win the ball back, deep in our half, maybe you need someone who's going to be able to initiate that attack with passing, and that's exactly what he does and what he is. And I think people quite underestimate that about him. He's quite good at the distribution for the midfield of Stellenbosch. Now they play a style that I guess is not so much ball orientated. I think they are thinking mostly about how quickly can we get to our front man. So they'll sometimes launch it diagonally. Sometimes they will, have it go straight to De Jong up front, their big man, who brings other people into play by keeping it up, and he does fantastically at that. So he'd definitely be coming to Orlando Pirates into a different style. However, what I've seen of him on the ball, I think he's someone who'd suit our style. I think mostly what this signing would do is, especially at a top team, this is the point that I want to make is, when you think about just how adventurous we are and how ambitious we are. And the coach always speaks about that, especially last season in his press conferences. He used to describe this Orlando Pirates team as humble but ambitious. We are very ambitious. We are quite daring. I think that's what he wants this club and this team to become. I think Jose Rivero wants this club to be daring and ambitious. He wants us to, be in the face of the opposition. And he spoke recently at a press conference when he was asked questions about, you guys are struggling to break down low blocks and teams that sit back and kind of, defend their own box and their goal. What do you make of that? And what he said was, and I'm misquoting him, and he said, if teams are going to sit back against us, then we love that because that's what we want. We want to be a team that wants to dominate the opposition in their half. And if they do that, we're going to hurt them. And I think that's what he wants us to be. He wants us to be daring in our approach. He wants us to be ambitious. I think a lot of people have thought of him as quite defensive. I saw someone who said something fantastic. I can't remember who it was. And he said that when he joined Jose Rivero, maybe the plan was, you don't want to lose your job quite early. So you want to make sure that you've got a bit of a solid defense, and then we can go forward from there. And I thought that was an interesting point. I mean, it's contestable, but it is an interesting perspective of looking at things, that he would have wanted to rescue his job and save it. And once, we were getting those clean sheets, and you might remember when we were playing with the three at the back last season, we're quite solid at the back. We weren't conceding as much. And yeah, he's since revolutionized the team. I mean, changed the system of how we played. There are similarities with the width from the wide players, I beg your pardon. Munyani, who was a wing back, or Otto sometimes, would offer the width on the left, and then you'd have three people sit back, which is what happens now when we attack. Marco is the one who's less adventurous. I mean, he'll go forward every now and again, but he's the one who's less adventurous. He'll stay back and form a three with Sibisi and Koki at the back, and then you'll have the player playing on the right, offering the width or cutting inside. Shandu, what he does is sometimes he comes in, and then Saleng will be the wide player. On this side, Mofokeng sometimes stays, very wide to offer the width on the left, and then you'll have Ndlondlo and Maswanganye attacking those half spaces centrally, and then obviously Lepasa will do the work inside of the box and centrally as well. And then you'll have someone like Mthethwa, if he comes into Orlando Pirates, sitting there in front of that three that remains at the back as the one that's going to stay there and protect them. Now, what I want to say with the point about being daring and ambitious is that, when I look at Sundowns, and I don't want us to play like Sundowns. I want us to be Orlando Pirates, because I don't want us to be an understudy of Sundowns. I don't want us to be their sidekick or whatever. I want us to be Orlando Pirates in the face of Sundowns. This is how we play. This is how we impose ourselves on you. And that's something we're going to do to them on the 20th of September. But premature conversation. What I think it would help us to sign someone like him who specializes in breaking up play, who specializes in protecting us when we are attacking, is you would then be able to send more numbers upfield. You'd be able to play with a more daring kind of, approach, where you would even push Marco out wide to be the one who attacks on that left, and then you'd push Munyane or Shandu on the right to offer the width this side, and then you'd obviously have Saleng coming in, you'd have Ratomo coming in as well, Mofokeng, I beg your pardon, and then you'd have Maswanganye pushing as well, you have Ndlondlo joining as well, and then you have Lepasa, so almost suffocating our opposition, like we did actually in the second half versus Stellenbosch, where the only people that were remaining at the back were Sibisi and Koki, and they were even further high up in that opposition's half versus Stellenbosch. And then if you've got someone like Mthethwa, who's very good at sniffing out danger, is when the team wants to counter-attack, he's quite good at stopping that. I mean, he's quite fast as well in tracking back. He's quite good. He's got a very good recovery in terms of speed, and that's what the team that he'd allow us to be. He'd allow us to be an even more adventurous club, and I think that's how I understand the interest in this player, is that I guess, if it's a Jose Rivero thing, because I've heard that Jose Rivero has some say, a lot of talk around that with transfers. Does the coach have a say and things like that? But I've heard that he was the one that, requested the signing of someone like Sepelo Paloni. And, if it's him saying to the board after these 2 games against Stellenbosch, 3 games, 2 games actually, against Stellenbosch, if he's the one that says to the board, you know what, please get me Sibongiseni Mthethwa, then I think, yeah, he's obviously wanting to unleash us even more. He's looking at that Stellenbosch game and he's going, if we have someone like Mthethwa sitting there, then we've got all our players, all our 8 players kind of getting into the face of the opposition and, coming up against a team like Stellenbosch who are quite fast on, transitions and counter-attacks. Mthethwa is the kind of player who stops someone like Reyners at his tracks. He stops actually the pass before that, the pass that wants to find Reyners. He's the one that sniffs that out and things like that. And I think if you've heard nothing from me, I think this would be a fantastic signing. I think the worry obviously would be that they've left it till late. So it does raise a bit of question marks about the planning and stuff like that. I mean, if you're gonna try and make the signing on the 22nd, much closer to the 22nd of September, which is the close of the transfer window in South African top flight football, I start to maybe question a bit of the planning around that. Why have you left it till late? Why have you only been convinced after it seems like we've played against Stellenbosch? I mean, I've heard obviously of the interest at the start of the window, but this urgency that is suddenly seeming like is taking off, this urgency and desperation to want to sign him as soon as possible, raises a few questions like why only now? If there's even a truth to what we've read in the news about Pirates, now inquiring and pushing Stellenbosch and even wanting to offer Siphelelo Paloni to go over there. By the way, to say something about that, I think it would be great. I think it would be great for someone like him to go and get experience, in the DStv Premiership, to go and play over there, get this experience and minutes in his legs. And then when he comes to Pirates, at the time, I think he will be in 2024, if he returns, he will be 25, and then you can then reconsider a situation, which is, I guess at 25, he will supposed to have taken off. I think once you go beyond that 25, 26, still having to be loaned out. I think this is why, by the way, it hasn't worked with people like Bongani Sam and Tebo Khotlolane is, he's being loaned out, and once you get to that 25, it starts to seem like we're trying to get you off you are surplus to requirements, and maybe we'll bring you back at some point if Maela stops to play for us because he's beyond 30 now. Then we need a left back, so we've got one in our books and he's a decent one. He's got experience in the PSL. However, it doesn't seem like there's an urgency to want to integrate a 25, 26-year-old who's out on loan back into the team. And yeah, so that would be the concern. He'd have to come back having shown, like Saleng, who came back at 24 rather, from loan, and he was ready to kick off his career at Pirates. And it would have to be the same thing with Paloni if he goes over there to get an experience at Stellenbosch. And yeah, I think Mthethwa would be great for us. What do you guys think? Where do you think I'm absolutely nuts with what I've said? Where do you think I'm crazy? Leave it all in the comment section. Let me leave it here before I go in for too long. Thank you guys for subscribing. I always like to, take the time to appreciate that. You guys are doing fantastic in terms of, supporting me, but also just engaging and leaving your ideas in the comment section for people to learn from and for me to learn from as well. So please keep doing that. Please spread the word as well. Please share these videos to other Buccaneers so we can grow the community. It can be something that's quite big for us to meet at one place and have a voice as the fans. I certainly think that we deserve to have a voice as the fans. The 3 pillars of a football club are the head coach, the players and the fans. And if one is not as loud and as heard and as assertive, it's just not great. And I think fans are a pillar of a football club with which it stands. And we certainly need to be, for our club, our great club. It's great to meet in these spaces and to share ideas and to have, the people that work internally at the club who are serving us hear what we think and stuff like that. So yeah, please share the word, please share the videos, please like as well, please subscribe if you haven't. Until the next video, up the mighty Bucks. Cheers. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video from Talking Buccaneers. If you did, please hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all our future content.